The snow fell in soft, silent sheets over the Sangre de Cristo Mountains, veiling the New Mexico landscape in a whiteness Violet Langford barely recognized. She touched the edge of the stagecoach window, her breath fogging the glass as she stared out at the pine trees, once dusty and sun-baked, now burdened with snow. The cold seeped inward, bypassing even her expensive wool traveling coat from Boston, useless against the memories this land still held. "Miss Langford." The driver's weathered face appeared at the window as the coach slowed. "We're approaching the ranch. Your father's expecting you." "Yes." The word came out smaller than intended. She cleared her throat, straightening her spine the way her finishing school instructors had taught her. "Yes, he is." But as the stagecoach rounded the final bend and the Langford ranch emerged through the veil of snow, Violet's carefully constructed composure crumbled. The two-story ranch house stood exactly as she remembered. Rough-hewn logs chinked with adobe, smoke rising from the stone chimney, the wide porch where she'd spent countless summer evenings watching the sun paint the mountains gold, the barn, the corrals, the bunkhouse for the ranch hands, all unchanged, as if time had stopped the moment she'd left. Her dark eyes scanned the property with desperate hunger, searching for what she told herself she wasn't looking for. Then she saw him. Onas stood near the horse corral, his tall frame silhouetted against the white landscape. He wore a heavy coat over his buckskin shirt, his long black hair tied back with a leather cord. Even from this distance, even through the falling snow, she recognized the set of his shoulders, the way he moved with that quiet grace that had first captured her attention when she was barely more than a child. He turned as the stagecoach approached, and their eyes met. Time stopped. Her heart slammed against her ribs so hard she pressed a hand to her chest, gasping. 3 years. 3 years of telling herself she'd moved on, that what they'd had was a childish infatuation, that her new life with Edmund, proper, educated, acceptable Edmund, was what she truly wanted. 3 years of lies that shattered in an instant under the weight of those dark eyes that had haunted her dreams every single night. The stagecoach jerked to a halt. The driver opened the door, offering his hand, but Violet couldn't move. She was drowning in snow and memory, in the ghost of promises broken and dreams abandoned. "Violet!" Her father's voice boomed across the yard. "My girl, you're finally home." Thomas Langford strode through the snow, his silver-streaked beard dusted with white, arms open wide. He'd aged in 3 years, new lines around his eyes, a slight stoop to his shoulders, but his smile was genuine and warm. Behind him came her mother, Sarah, bundled in a thick shawl, tears already streaming down her weathered cheeks. Violet forced herself to move, accepting the driver's hand and stepping down into ankle-deep snow. Her fashionable button boots, so perfect for Boston's cobblestone streets, sank uselessly into the drift. She stumbled slightly, and suddenly her father was there, catching her, pulling her into an embrace that smelled of pipe smoke and leather and home. "Let me look at you." He held her at arm's length, his blue eyes, so unlike her own dark ones, crinkling with pleasure. "A proper lady now, aren't you? Your mother's been beside herself with excitement for weeks." "My baby." Sarah enfolded her in a second embrace, warmer and softer. "We've missed you so much. The house has been so empty without your laughter." Violet returned the embraces mechanically, her body present, but her awareness elsewhere. She could feel him watching. Every nerve ending screamed his presence 30 yards away, could feel the weight of his gaze like a brand between her shoulder blades. "Come inside! Come inside!" Her mother fussed with Violet's coat collar. "You must be frozen. I've made your favorite stew and we have so much to discuss. Your father told me about your engagement to Mr. Whitmore. Such wonderful news. We'll need to plan the wedding and—" "Let the girl catch her breath, Sarah." Thomas laughed, guiding them toward the house. Ranch hands emerged to handle Violet's trunks, their faces familiar but distant. She'd been gone so long, moved in such different circles, that the easy camaraderie of her youth felt impossible to reclaim. At the porch steps, Violet couldn't help herself. She turned just for a moment and looked back. Onas stood exactly where he'd been, unmoving as stone, watching her with an expression she couldn't read from this distance. The snow fell between them like a curtain separating two worlds, hers of propriety and parlors and engagement rings, his of survival and silence and the vast, unforgiving wilderness. His words from 3 years ago echoed in her mind, as clear as if he'd spoken them just now. You may end our deal, but not my claim. She'd run from those words. Run from the fury and betrayal in his eyes when he'd discovered her leaving, without telling him, without saying goodbye, without honoring the promises they'd whispered to each other under starlight. She'd convinced herself that time and distance would free her from whatever hold he had on her heart. But standing here in the snow with 3 years of attempted forgetting crumbling around her like old paper, Violet knew the truth she'd been desperately avoiding. He had never released her, and she had never truly escaped. "Violet?" Her mother's voice pulled her back. "Darling, you're trembling. Come inside before you catch your death." She forced her feet to move, to climb the steps, to cross the threshold into the house that smelled of pine and cinnamon and her childhood. But even as her mother chatted excitedly about wedding plans and her father poured whiskey to ward off the cold, Violet's mind remained in the snowy yard with the man who had claimed her heart when she was too young to understand what that meant, and who apparently had never let it go. The house was exactly as she remembered, yet entirely foreign. The same rough-hewn furniture her grandfather had built, the same faded curtains her mother had sewn, the same stone fireplace where her father read newspapers on winter evenings. But Violet had changed. The girl who'd left this place had been desperate, conflicted, terrified of the impossible love that had seized her heart. The woman who returned wore expensive dresses and an engagement ring, and the carefully constructed mask of someone who'd successfully moved on. Except the mask was already cracking. "You look so sophisticated," Sarah exclaimed, helping Violet remove her coat. "That dress must have cost a fortune. Mr. Whitmore is clearly a man of means." "Edmund is comfortable." Violet carefully avoided her mother's eyes. Edmund Whitmore III, banker's son, Harvard-educated, acceptable to every level of Boston society, handsome in a refined way, with soft hands and softer ambitions. He'd courted her properly, asked her father's permission by letter, presented her with a modest but respectable diamond ring. He was everything she was supposed to want. He was nothing she actually needed. "Tell us about him." Her mother settled into her rocking chair, hands clasped with excitement. "How did you meet? When will he arrive to ask your father's blessing properly?" "He's coming in 3 weeks." Violet moved to the window, drawn by forces she couldn't name. From here she could see the corral where Onas had been standing. He was gone now, but she knew exactly where he'd be. In the barn, tending the horses, moving through his evening routine with that quiet efficiency that had always fascinated her. 3 weeks! Sarah clapped her hands. "Oh, that gives us just enough time to prepare. We'll need to clean the guest room, plan a proper dinner party, invite the neighbors." "Sarah, let the girl breathe." Thomas poured himself more whiskey, studying Violet with sharp eyes that missed nothing. "You've been traveling for days. Rest tonight. Tomorrow's soon enough for wedding plans." Violet shot her father a grateful look. He'd always understood her better than her mother did, saw the restlessness in her, the wildness she'd inherited from his mother, who'd crossed the plains in a covered wagon and shot her own dinner before the territory had been half civilized. "I think I'll take a walk before dinner," Violet said suddenly. "Stretch my legs after being cooped up in that stagecoach." "In this snow?" Her mother frowned. "You'll ruin those beautiful boots." "I have others." Violet was already moving toward the coat rack, heart pounding. "I won't be long." She escaped before her mother could protest further, stepping back into the cold that bit through her fine wool coat. The snow had intensified, fat flakes swirling in the wind that swept down from the mountains. She should go back inside. A proper lady wouldn't wander around in a snowstorm. Edmund certainly wouldn't approve. Her feet carried her toward the barn anyway. The structure loomed before her, solid and familiar, the scent of hay and horses and leather drifting from the slightly open door. Lamplight flickered within. Someone was still working. Her hand trembled as she reached for the door. "What are you doing?" her rational mind screamed. "You're engaged. You have a respectable future waiting. Walk away." But she'd tried walking away 3 years ago, and it had solved nothing. Whatever was between her and Onas needed to be addressed, confronted, put to rest once and for all. She owed him that much at least. Owed him the conversation she'd denied him when she'd fled like a coward in the night. Violet pushed the door open and stepped into the warm, hay-scented darkness of the barn. He was there, brushing down a large roan mare with slow, methodical strokes. He didn't turn at her entrance, didn't acknowledge her presence, but she knew he sensed her. His shoulders tensed infinitesimally, the only sign that he was aware he was no longer alone. Onas. Her voice came out barely above a whisper. He continued brushing the mare, each stroke deliberate and controlled. The silence stretched between them, heavy with 3 years of unspoken words. She stepped closer, snow melting from her boots onto the barn floor. I thought we should talk. About what? His voice was rough, deeper than she remembered, edged with something that made her shiver despite the barn's warmth. He still didn't turn to face her. About how you ran away in the middle of the night, about how you broke every promise you made, about how you're back now wearing another man's ring. Each word landed like a physical blow. Violet wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly cold despite her coat. I didn't mean to hurt you. Didn't you? Finally he turned. The breath left her lungs. He'd changed in 3 years. His face had hardened, all traces of youth burned away by sun and wind, and whatever else he'd endured in her absence. A thin scar ran along his left cheekbone, new since she'd left. His hair was longer, his frame slightly broader, his eyes darker and more guarded. But it was still him. Still the man who'd taught her to ride bareback through the desert, who'd shown her how to read the mountain's moods, who'd kissed her under the stars and whispered promises of a future they'd build together somehow, despite everything arrayed against them. I was 18, she said desperately. I was scared. My parents wanted to send me east, and I thought maybe distance would make things clearer. Would give us both time to think. Time to think? He laughed, but there was no humor in it. Or time to forget. Time to find yourself a nice, acceptable husband who wouldn't embarrass your family. That's not fair. No? He moved closer, and she could smell him now, leather and pine and something wilder, more dangerous. Tell me, Violet, when you were dancing at those fancy Boston parties, did you think about me even once? When this Edmund was courting you, buying you gifts, proposing, did I cross your mind? Or had you already erased me like I never existed? Stop. Tears burned her eyes. You know it wasn't like that. Then what was it like? He stood directly in front of her now, close enough to touch. Explain to me how you could promise forever, could let me make plans for us, and then vanish without a word. Explain how you could come back here wearing another man's ring and expect me to just... What? Congratulate you? I didn't expect anything. The words burst from her. I didn't expect you to still be here. I thought you'd have moved on, found someone else, forgotten about me. Forgotten about you. He repeated the words slowly, as if tasting them. Then he reached out, so fast she couldn't react, and caught her left hand. He lifted it between them, the diamond ring glinting in the lamplight. This what you want? This respectable future with a man who'll never understand you, who'll try to tame everything wild in you until you're just another proper lady pouring tea and planning dinner parties. His thumb traced over the ring, then over her knuckles, and even that small touch sent electricity racing through her entire body. She tried to pull her hand back, but his grip tightened. You may end our deal, but not my claim, he said softly, echoing the words that had haunted her for 3 years. I meant that, Violet. I meant every word. You can't just claim someone. She finally wrenched her hand free, backing away. I'm not property. I'm not something you can just decide belongs to you. No. His eyes burned into hers. But you gave yourself to me. Freely. Completely. You promised me forever. And I believed you. I'm not the one who broke faith. The truth of his words cut deeper than any blade. She had promised. She had given herself, not her body, they'd been too careful for that, too aware of the consequences, but her heart, her soul, her every dream of the future. And then she'd run. I was afraid, she whispered. I'm still afraid. Of what? Of this. She gestured between them. Of what we feel, of what it means, of what choosing you would cost me. My family, my place in society, any chance at a normal life. I never asked you to choose me. His voice was steady, but she could see the pain flickering in his eyes. I asked you to stay, to keep talking to me, to keep dreaming with me, to let us figure out a path forward together. Instead, you chose for both of us without giving me a say. He was right. She knew he was right. But that didn't make the fear any less real, didn't make the impossible situation any less impossible. I should go. She moved toward the door. This was a mistake. I shouldn't have come here. You're afraid I'll make you feel something, he said quietly. Afraid I'll remind you of who you really are beneath all those fancy dresses and proper manners. Afraid you'll have to admit that your respectable banker doesn't make your heart race the way I do. She stopped at the door, hand on the rough wood, trembling. Don't. 3 years, Violet. 3 years, and you still can't look at me without your breath catching. You still can't be near me without trembling. Your Edmund makes you feel safe, I'm sure. Comfortable. But does he make you feel alive? She fled into the snow without answering, because they both already knew the truth. Sleep eluded Violet that night. She lay in her childhood bed, staring at the ceiling beams she'd memorized years ago, listening to the wind howl through the mountain passes. Snow tapped against her window like restless fingers, and she imagined Onas in the bunkhouse, or wherever he slept now, warm beneath rough blankets, his long hair loose around his shoulders, perhaps dreaming of her the way she'd dreamed of him every night for 3 years. Stop, she commanded herself. Stop thinking about him. You're engaged. You have a future planned. Edmund is good and kind and stable, but Edmund had never made her feel like she was burning from the inside out, had never looked at her like she was the only thing worth seeing in the entire world, had never touched her hand, and made every nerve ending sing with awareness. Edmund was safe. Onas was everything but. The problem was that safety had started to feel like suffocation. When dawn finally broke, grey and cold, the snow still falling, Violet gave up on sleep and dressed in one of her simpler day dresses. The dark green wool was still far finer than anything she'd worn before leaving for Boston, but at least it didn't scream Eastern sophistication quite as loudly as her traveling ensemble. She found her mother already in the kitchen, kneading dough for bread. The familiar yeasty smell brought a rush of nostalgia so strong Violet had to grip the doorframe. "Morning, sweetheart." Sarah looked up with a flour-dusted smile. "Coffee's hot. Did you sleep well?" "Well enough." The lie came easily. She'd perfected the art of lying during her 3 years away. "Can I help?" Her mother's smile widened. "I'd love that. It's been so long since we cooked together." They fell into an easy rhythm, the way they always had. Violet shaped rolls while her mother prepared biscuits, their hands moving in synchronized routine that required no thought. Outside she could hear the ranch coming to life, men's voices calling to each other, horses nickering, the creak of wagon wheels on packed snow. "Your father's hiring more hands," Sarah said casually. "Business has been good these past few years. We're running nearly 300 head now. That's wonderful." Violet focused on the dough beneath her fingers. "Onas has been invaluable, of course. Your father says he's the best foreman he's ever had. The horses respond to him like magic, and he seems to know when weather's coming before it even shows on the horizon." Sarah paused, glancing at Violet from the corner of her eye. "He's been asking about you." Violet's hands stilled. "Has he? Over the years? Whether we'd heard from you, how your studies were going, if you were happy?" Her mother's voice was carefully neutral. "He was quite upset when you left, disappeared into the mountains for nearly 2 weeks. Your father thought we'd lost him." Guilt twisted in Violet's stomach. "I didn't know." "Didn't you?" Sarah's hands never stopped their work, but her tone sharpened slightly. "You were always a clever girl, Violet. Surely you understood what you meant to him." "Mama, I'm not blind, sweetheart." Her mother met her eyes directly. "I've watched you two dance around each other since you were 15 years old. The way he'd find excuses to work near the house when you were home. The way you'd volunteer to bring water to the workers, just so you could talk to him. The way you'd sneak out after dark, thinking your father and I didn't notice." Heat flooded Violet's cheeks. "We never did anything improper." "I know, but you wanted to." Sarah shaped another biscuit with practiced efficiency. "And that scared you more than anything else, didn't it? How much you wanted him. How much you were willing to risk for someone so completely wrong in the eyes of society. He's Apache." The word came out as a whisper. "Half Apache anyway. In Boston, people would never—" "Boston isn't here." Her mother's hands finally stilled. "And Edmund Whitmore isn't Onas. Edmund is offering me a good life, stability, respectability, children who won't be ostracized for their heritage, children you don't want with him." Sarah's words cut through Violet's protests. "Don't think I didn't notice your letters." All that careful language about Edmund's qualities, about the advantageous match, about your rational decision. You never once mentioned love. Love isn't everything. But even as Violet said it, the words tasted like ash. No, her mother agreed. But a lifetime without it is a slow death. I should know. I nearly married the wrong man before I met your father. Violet looked up sharply. What? Sarah smiled sadly. I was engaged to a banker's son in St. Louis. Very proper, very wealthy. My parents were thrilled, and I was miserable. She wiped her hands on her apron, moving to stand beside Violet. Then I met your father, rough, uncivilized, about to head west with nothing but a dream and some surveying equipment. My parents forbade me from seeing him, said he'd never amount to anything, that I'd throw away my future for a fantasy. But you married him anyway. I did. And yes, it was hard. We struggled. There were times I missed the comfort and security I'd given up. But I never once regretted choosing love over comfort. She cupped Violet's face gently. The question you need to ask yourself isn't whether Onas is the rational choice. It's whether you can live the rest of your life wondering what might have been. Before Violet could respond, her father's voice boomed from the front room. Sarah! Violet! We've got visitors! They exchanged a glance and hurried to the front of the house. Through the window, Violet could see 3 riders approaching through the snow. Her father's friend Martin Prescott and his 2 sons, all bundled against the cold. Thomas! Martin dismounted with the ease of someone who'd spent his entire life on horseback. Heard your girl was back, had to come see this Eastern lady for myself? The next hour passed in a whirl of greetings and gossip. The Prescotts had been their neighbors for as long as Violet could remember, ranchers like her father, weathered by sun and hardship, but fundamentally decent people. Martin's sons, Robert and James, had grown from gangly teenagers into solid men in her absence. You're even prettier than we remembered, Robert said with a grin that was only slightly too forward. Boston must have agreed with you. It was educational. Violet accepted a cup of coffee from her mother, hyper-aware of the conversation happening in glances between the adults. Martin kept looking between her and Robert with the speculative expression of a man considering possibilities. Robert's taken over management of our northern range, Martin announced with fatherly pride. Doing a fine job of it, too. Building up quite a reputation. Father. Robert's ears reddened, but he looked pleased. The conversation flowed around her. Cattle prices, water rights, trouble with rustlers in the territory. Violet participated mechanically, her mind elsewhere. Through the window, she could see men working near the corral, and there, directing them with quiet authority, was Onas. He'd removed his heavy coat despite the cold, working in his buckskin shirt and worn trousers, moving among the horses with that grace that always captivated her. As she watched, he gentled a skittish gelding with nothing but touch and murmured words, calming the animal in moments where others would have used force. That's quite a hand you've got there, Thomas. Martin followed her gaze. The Apache fellow. Prescott was telling me your herd's tripled since you brought him on. Onas is exceptional, Thomas agreed. Best decision I ever made, hiring him. Shame about his heritage, though. Martin's tone was casual, but Violet heard the judgment beneath. Hard for a man like that to make his way in civilized society. No matter how skilled he is, he'll always be what he is. Violet's fingers tightened on her coffee cup. He's a skilled horseman and a valuable member of this ranch's workforce. His heritage has nothing to do with his worth. The room went quiet. Her father coughed. Her mother suddenly found her own cup fascinating. Martin raised his eyebrows, while Robert looked between her and Onas with new understanding dawning in his eyes. Well, of course, Martin recovered smoothly. Didn't mean any offense, just stating facts about how the world works. A man like that, he shrugged. He's got no real future, no prospects. Can't exactly settle down and start a family, can he? Who'd have him? I imagine plenty of women would find him admirable, Violet said coolly. Character matters more than bloodline. At least it should. Violet. Her father's warning tone was gentle but clear. She bit her tongue, recognizing she'd said too much, revealed too much. But she couldn't help one final glance out the window, where Onas had paused in his work and was looking directly at the house, directly at the window where she stood. Even at this distance, she felt the connection snap between them like a physical thing. I should check on dinner preparations, she murmured, fleeing to the kitchen before anyone could see the tears burning in her eyes. The Prescotts stayed for dinner, which turned into an extended affair with more neighbors dropping by to welcome Violet home and meet the Eastern lady she'd become. By the time the last guest departed, Violet's face hurt from smiling, and her ears rang with questions about Edmund and Boston and her upcoming wedding, a wedding that felt less real by the hour. She escaped to her room as soon as politeness allowed, but sleep remained impossible. Near midnight she gave up and pulled on her old riding boots, still in the back of her closet, worn and familiar, and her warmest shawl. The house was silent as she crept downstairs and slipped out the back door. The snow had stopped, the sky had cleared, revealing a sweep of stars so brilliant they hurt to look at. The cold bit through her shawl immediately, but she welcomed it, needed the shock of it to clear her head. Her feet carried her not toward the barn, but toward the old trail that wound up into the foothills. She and Onas had discovered it years ago, a hidden path that led to a small plateau where they could see the entire valley spread below. They'd spent countless evenings there talking about everything and nothing, dreaming dreams that felt possible under starlight. She didn't expect him to be there. It was pure coincidence, she told herself, that she'd chosen this destination. But when she emerged onto the plateau, he was there. He stood at the edge, looking out over the moonlit valley, his long hair loose and stirring in the wind. He didn't turn at her approach, but his shoulders tensed slightly, the only acknowledgement that he knew she was there. "I used to come here after you left," he said quietly. "Thought if I waited long enough, you'd come back, that you'd explain, that you'd tell me I mattered enough for you to fight for." Violet's throat closed. "Onas, I waited for 6 months." He finally turned to face her. "Every evening I'd come up here and watch the horizon, thinking maybe today would be the day I'd see you riding back, that maybe you'd realized what you were throwing away. I'm sorry." The words were pathetically inadequate. "I'm so sorry." "Are you?" He moved closer, and she could see his face clearly now in the moonlight. "Or are you just sorry that I won't make this easy for you? That I won't smile and congratulate you on your engagement and fade quietly into the background? I never wanted to hurt you." "Then why did you?" The question was raw, stripped of pride. "Why didn't you talk to me? Why didn't you give me a chance to—" He broke off, jaw clenching. "Did you think so little of me? Think I'd hold you back, beg you to stay for my sake? I would have let you go, Violet, if you'd asked me to. If you'd told me you needed to go to become who you were meant to be. But you didn't even give me that choice." She was crying now, tears hot on her frozen cheeks. "I was 18 years old and terrified. Terrified of what I felt for you, of what choosing you would mean, of disappointing my family. And now," he was close enough to touch now, "what are you now?" "Confused," she whispered. "Lost. I thought I had everything figured out. I thought I'd moved on, built a new life, found someone suitable." "Suitable?" He laughed bitterly. "There's that word again. Like love is just another business arrangement to be carefully negotiated. That's not fair. Edmund is good to me. I don't care about Edmund." The words burst from him with sudden violence. "I don't care that he's suitable or respectable or whatever other lukewarm virtues he possesses. I care that you're standing here in front of me, still trembling when I get close, still looking at me like your heart might break, and pretending you've moved on. I have moved on. Prove it." He moved even closer. "Look me in the eye and tell me you don't still think about me. Tell me you don't still dream about us. Tell me Edmund makes you feel even a fraction of what I do." "Stop. Tell me." His hands caught her shoulders, not rough but firm, holding her in place. "Tell me you love him more than you love me, and I'll let you go. I'll walk away. I'll leave this ranch, leave New Mexico, disappear so completely you'll never have to face me again. Just say the words, Violet. Tell me you don't love me anymore." She opened her mouth. The lie should have been easy. She'd been telling herself versions of it for 3 years. But standing here with his hands on her shoulders, and his eyes burning into hers and the ghost of every promise they'd made, hanging in the cold air between them, the words wouldn't come. She tried again. "I can't." "Can't what?" His voice gentled slightly. "Can't love me, or can't lie to me?" "Both," she whispered. "Neither. I don't know anymore." His hands slid from her shoulders to frame her face, thumbs brushing away her tears. "Then figure it out." But don't ask me to pretend I've forgotten. Don't ask me to watch you marry someone else while part of me dies, and don't—" His voice broke slightly. "Don't come to me wearing his ring while your eyes tell me you still belong to me. I don't belong to anyone." She pulled away from his touch, wrapping her arms around herself. "That's the problem. Everyone wants to decide my future, my parents, Edmund, you, but no one asks what I want. Then what do you want?" The question hung between them, simple and impossible. What did she want? The security Edmund offered? The respectability, the ease of moving through society without whispers following her? Or this terrible, wonderful burning that made her feel more alive in Onas's presence than she'd felt in 3 years away from him? "I want—" She looked at him helplessly. "I want not to have to choose. I want a world where loving you doesn't cost me everything else." That world doesn't exist. His words were gentle but final. It never did. We both knew that from the start. Then what do we do? He was silent for a long moment, studying her face like he was memorizing it. We accept that some things aren't meant to be, that sometimes love isn't enough to overcome everything arrayed against it. "You're giving up?" Something panicked rose in her chest. "Just like that?" "I gave up 3 years ago." His smile was sad. "When you left without saying goodbye. When you stopped answering my letters." "You wrote me letters?" 23 of them. He pulled something from inside his coat, a bundle of envelopes, yellowed and worn. "Your father promised to forward them. I'm guessing you never received them." Violet stared at the letters with growing horror. "No, I never—" She reached for them with trembling hands, but he pulled them back. "It doesn't matter now." He tucked them away again. "What matters is you made your choice, and I need to respect that, even if I don't like it. Onas, please, go back to the house, Violet." He turned away from her. "Go back to your fiancé and your respectable future. And this time, actually commit to it. Don't keep looking back. Don't keep wondering. Just let me go." She should have left. Should have turned and walked away, accepted the clean break he was offering. Instead, she found herself moving closer, her hand reaching for his arm. "I can't," she whispered. "I tried for 3 years to let you go, and I can't." He went very still beneath her touch. "Don't do this." "Don't do what?" "Tell you the truth. I love Edmund, or at least I care for him. He's everything I should want. But when I look at him, I don't feel my heart stop. I don't feel like the world's falling away and nothing else matters. I don't feel—" "Violet," his voice was strained, "if you're about to say what I think you're going to say, you need to be sure, because I can't do this again. I can't let myself hope only to watch you run." "I'm not running." She moved around to face him. "Not anymore. I don't know what that means or how we make this work or what I'm going to tell Edmund, but I'm not running." For a heartbeat, he just looked at her. Then he said very quietly, "You're still wearing his ring." She looked down at her left hand. The diamond caught the moonlight, cold and proper. With shaking fingers, she slid it off and tucked it into her pocket. "There," she whispered. "No more ring." The kiss, when it came, wasn't gentle. It was 3 years of longing and anger and desperate hope compressed into a single moment. His hands tangled in her dark hair, pulling her closer as her arms wrapped around his neck. And for the first time in 3 years, Violet felt like she could finally breathe. The world fell away. The cold, the stars, her fear of the future. There was only this. His mouth on hers, his body pressed against hers, the taste of him that she'd tried so hard to forget. She made a small sound in the back of her throat, and he responded by deepening the kiss, walking her backward until her back hit the rough trunk of a pine tree. "Tell me to stop," he murmured against her lips. "Tell me this is a mistake." "Don't stop," she breathed. "Don't ever stop." When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against hers. "What now?" "I don't know." She laughed shakily. "I have no idea. All I know is I can't marry Edmund. I can't live the rest of my life wondering what might have been. Your parents will have to accept it." She said it with more confidence than she felt. "Or they won't. But I can't keep living for their expectations." He pulled back slightly to look at her properly. "This won't be easy. You understand that, right? If you choose this, choose me, there will be consequences. People will judge you. Some doors will close. Your fancy Boston friends weren't really friends anyway, she finished. I know what I'm giving up, Onas, and I'm choosing you anyway. The smile that spread across his face was like sunrise, slow, warm, transforming. He kissed her again, gentler this time, and she melted into it, into him, finally letting herself feel everything she'd been suppressing for 3 years. They stood together in the moonlight, holding each other while the stars wheeled overhead, and for the first time since she'd left, Violet felt like she'd finally come home. Breaking an engagement, Violet discovered, was considerably more difficult than accepting one. She waited until the next morning, after a sleepless night spent reliving every moment on the plateau, every touch, every whispered promise. Her lips still felt swollen from Onas's kisses, and she caught herself touching them repeatedly, unable to quite believe it had happened. Her father was in his study going over ranch accounts when she knocked. "Come in!" Thomas looked up with a welcoming smile that faded when he saw her expression. "What's wrong? I need to tell you something." She closed the door behind her, then crossed to his desk and carefully placed Edmund's ring on top of his ledger. "I can't marry Edmund." Her father stared at the ring for a long moment. When he finally looked up, his expression was carefully neutral. "Does this have anything to do with Onas?" "It has everything to do with Onas." She met his eyes directly. "I never stopped loving him, Papa. I really tried, but spending time with Edmund, building a life in Boston, it all felt like play acting, and I can't do it anymore." Thomas leaned back in his chair, studying her face. "Do you understand what you're giving up? The life Edmund could provide, the security, the respectability." "I understand that respectability without love is a prison." She borrowed her mother's words. "And I'd rather face uncertainty with someone I love than comfort with someone I don't. Onas is Apache, half Apache. And yes, I know what that means in the eyes of society. I know we'll face judgment and closed doors and people who'll never accept us." She took a breath. "But I also know that I've spent 3 years being miserable without him, and I won't spend the rest of my life the same way." Her father was quiet for a long time. Outside she could hear ranch sounds, men shouting, horses whinnying, the familiar rhythm of daily work. Finally he sighed. "Your mother warned me this would happen. The moment you rode back onto this property, she said you'd end up with Onas." He picked up the ring, turning it in the light. "Edmund seems like a decent man. He deserves to know the truth directly, not to receive a letter breaking things off." "I know. I'll write to him today, but I plan to tell him in person when he arrives." It would be one of the hardest conversations of her life, but Edmund deserved that much courtesy. "And then what?" Thomas asked. "Even if you and Onas marry, and that's assuming we can find someone willing to perform the ceremony, where will you live? How will you support yourselves? Most communities won't welcome you. Most businesses won't serve you." The practical concerns she'd been avoiding crashed down on her. We haven't discussed details." "Then you'd better start." Her father's tone was stern but not unkind. "Love is important, Violet, but it doesn't put food on the table or a roof over your head. If you're serious about this, you need to plan for the reality you'll face." "Do you forbid it?" The question came out smaller than she intended. Thomas studied her for a long moment. Then he smiled, small and sad, but genuine. "No, you're a grown woman making her own choice. I don't agree with all of it, and I'm worried about what you'll face, but I'd be a hypocrite if I denied you the right to choose love over convention." He glanced at a small portrait on his desk, Violet's mother as a young woman. "Your mother gave up a lot to be with me, and every day I try to make sure she never regrets it." Relief flooded through her. "Thank you, Papa. Don't thank me yet." He stood, moving to the window that overlooked the corrals. "You still need to tell your mother, and you need to have an honest conversation with Onas about what kind of future you're building together." As if summoned, Onas appeared in her father's line of sight, leading a string of horses toward the far pasture. Even from this distance, Violet could see the easy confidence in his movements. "He's a good man," Thomas said quietly. "Hard worker, honest, treats the horses better than some people treat their own children." He paused. "But his life hasn't been easy, Violet. He's faced things you can't imagine. Violence, discrimination, loss. Are you prepared to face those same things alongside him?" "I'm prepared to try." "Trying might not be enough." He turned to face her. "I'm not trying to discourage you. I just want you to understand the reality of what you're choosing. I do understand. And she did, more clearly now than she had at 18. And I'm choosing it anyway. Her father nodded slowly. Then you'd better go talk to your mother. She's in the kitchen. Sarah took the news with surprising composure. She listened as Violet explained about the broken engagement, about her feelings for Onas, about her decision to face whatever consequences came. When Violet finished, her mother simply nodded. I knew when I saw you looking at him through the window yesterday, Sarah said, the same way I looked at your father when we first met, like your world had rearranged itself around one person. You're not angry? Angry? No. Her mother returned to kneading bread, her movements methodical. Worried? Absolutely. Violet, sweetheart, the path you're choosing is going to be hard, harder than you can imagine. I know. Do you? Sarah's hands stilled. Do you really? Have you thought about where you'll live? Whether you'll have children and what their lives will be like? Whether you'll be able to visit your family without facing hostility from neighbors? Her voice gentled. I'm not trying to discourage you. I just want you to be realistic about what you're facing. We'll figure it out. But even as Violet said it, doubt crept in. They hadn't discussed any of these practicalities. Last night had been all emotion and passion and promises, but cold morning light brought harsh reality. You need to talk to him, her mother said, echoing Thomas's advice. Really talk. About the future, about expectations, about how you'll handle the challenges you'll face. Love is essential, but it's not the only thing a relationship needs. Violet found Onas in the training corral, working with a young stallion that clearly didn't want to be worked with. The animal snorted and kicked, testing Onas's patience, but he remained calm and consistent, his voice a low murmur Violet couldn't quite hear. She leaned against the corral fence, content to watch. He moved with such natural grace, anticipating the horse's reactions before they happened, never using force when gentleness would suffice. After about 20 minutes, the stallion finally calmed, accepting Onas's touch and guidance. You're good with them, Violet said when he finally glanced her way. They're honest. He led the stallion to the fence. No hidden agendas, no games. They react based on how you treat them. His eyes met hers. Humans could learn something from that. She smiled despite the nervous flutter in her stomach. I talked to my parents, broke off my engagement officially. His expression remained carefully neutral. How did they take it? Better than I expected, worse than I hoped. She climbed onto the fence rail so they were closer to eye level. They're worried about us, about what kind of future we can build together. They should be worried. He tied the stallion's lead rope, then moved to stand directly in front of her. I don't have much to offer you, Violet. No land of my own, no money saved, no prospects beyond ranch work that most places won't even hire me for. His jaw clenched. You'd be giving up comfort and security for a life of uncertainty. I know. Do you? He echoed her mother's skepticism. Have you thought about where we'd live? Most towns won't rent to us. Your father might let us stay on his property, but for how long? And if we have children? He broke off, shaking his head. They'd face even worse than what I've dealt with. Half-breeds accepted by neither world. The term stung, but she understood his point. So what are you saying? That we shouldn't even try? I'm saying you need to be realistic. His hands came to rest on her knees, warm even through her skirt. Last night in the moonlight everything seemed possible, but this is daylight and the reality is harsh. I love you. God help me, I've loved you since you were too young for me to say so. But I won't let you sacrifice everything on a dream that might not survive contact with the real world. So you're giving up? Hurt lanced through her. After everything we said last night, you're just giving up. I'm trying to protect you. His voice rose slightly, and the stallion shifted nervously. He took a breath, calming himself. If we do this, there's no going back. You can't change your mind in 6 months when the reality gets too hard. You can't wake up one day and decide you miss your comfortable Boston life. If you choose this, choose me. It's forever, with all the hardship that entails. I'm not afraid of hardship. You should be. His hands tightened on her knees. I've watched men look at you like your property. I've heard what people say about Indian lovers. I've seen families torn apart, women ostracized, children bullied until they break. And I'm asking if you're really prepared to face all of that, or if you're still caught up in romance and passion without considering the consequences. Violet slid down from the fence, landing close enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. You want honesty? You want reality? Fine. Yes, I'm scared. Yes, I'm worried about where we'll live, and how we'll survive, and what people will say. Yes, I sometimes wake up in the middle of the night, panicking about what I'm choosing. She grabbed his shirt front, holding him in place. But I also know that living without you is worse than any hardship we might face together. I know that these past 3 years were the loneliest, emptiest years of my life. I know that respectable and comfortable was slowly suffocating me. And I know, her voice broke slightly, I know that I'd rather face an uncertain future with you than a certain future with anyone else. For a long moment he just looked at her. Then his hands came up to frame her face, and she could see everything in his eyes. Love and fear and desperate hope all tangled together. If we do this, he said quietly, we do it together. No more running. No more secrets. We face everything, the good and the bad, as partners. Together, she agreed. And when it gets hard, because it will get hard, you talk to me. You don't just disappear. You don't make decisions that affect us both without consulting me. She heard the hurt from 3 years ago beneath his words. I promise no more running. He kissed her then, right there in broad daylight where anyone might see. It was a declaration, a claiming, a promise, all rolled into one. And Violet kissed him back, without hesitation, without fear, finally free to show the world exactly where her heart belonged. A polite cough interrupted them. They broke apart to find Thomas standing a few feet away, expression carefully neutral. Onas, might I have a word? Her father's tone was formal, and Violet's stomach clenched with worry. In my office? Of course. Onas released Violet reluctantly, his expression wary. Sir. They walked toward the house together, leaving Violet alone with the restless stallion and her racing thoughts. What was her father going to say? Would he forbid them from seeing each other? Fire Onas? She paced the corral, unable to stay still, until finally the waiting became unbearable. She was halfway to the house when the office door opened, and both men emerged. Her father's expression was unreadable, but Onas looked stunned, hopeful, almost disbelieving. Papa? She searched his face. What? I've made Onas a proposition. Thomas's voice was businesslike. The north section of the ranch, the one bordering the mountains, has been sitting unused for years. Rocky soil, not ideal for cattle, but there's a good creek and enough grassland for horses. He paused. I'm offering to deed that section to him, 200 acres plus enough breeding stock to start a horse ranch. Violet's breath caught. You're giving him land? Not giving. It's a business arrangement. Her father pulled a folded document from his pocket. In exchange for Onas's continued help with my stock and his expertise in training horses, he'll receive the land deed and 10 breeding mares. He'll build his own operation while still working with mine. A partnership, not employment. Why? Onas's voice was rough. Why would you do this? Thomas looked between them. Because my daughter loves you. Because you're a good man and a skilled horseman. And because, he sighed, because I remember what it was like to be young and in love and have everyone tell you it was impossible. I can't make the world accept you, but I can give you a foundation to build on. I don't know what to say. Onas stared at the document like it might vanish if he touched it. Say you'll take care of my daughter. Thomas's voice turned serious. Say you'll build a life together, and when things get hard, and they will, you'll face them together instead of giving up. I swear it. Onas took the document with shaking hands. I'll spend the rest of my life making sure she never regrets choosing me. See that you do. Thomas clapped him on the shoulder. Now, there's a cabin on that property. Needs work, but it's structurally sound. You two should ride out there tomorrow, see what you're working with. Violet threw her arms around her father's neck. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you so much. Don't thank me yet. But he was smiling as he hugged her back. You've still got a lot of work ahead of you, and you still need to write to Edmund. The letter to Edmund proved to be the hardest thing Violet had ever written. She drafted it 7 times, each attempt feeling inadequate. How did you tell a good man that you couldn't marry him because your heart belonged to someone else? How did you apologize for wasting his time, for accepting his ring when you knew deep down that you'd never truly be his? In the end, she settled for simple honesty. Dear Edmund, I am writing with news that will hurt you, and for that I am deeply sorry. I cannot marry you. When I accepted your proposal, I believed I had put my past behind me, that I could build a future based on mutual respect and shared goals. But returning home has shown me the truth I was avoiding. My heart belongs to someone else, and it would be unfair to both of us to proceed with a marriage where I could never love you the way you deserve to be loved. You are a good man, kind, honorable, deserving of a wife who loves you completely. I am not that woman, and continuing our engagement would only lead to unhappiness for us both. I know this seems sudden, but the truth is, I've been dishonest with myself for 3 years. I thought distance and time would change how I felt, but some bonds cannot be broken by either. I will understand if you never wish to speak to me again. I will return your ring when you arrive, and I wish you every happiness in finding someone who can give you the love and devotion you deserve. With sincere regret and apologies, Violet. She sealed the letter before she could second-guess herself again, then handed it to her father to post. Edmund would receive it before he left Boston, giving him time to cancel his travel plans if he chose. He'll still come, her mother predicted when Violet mentioned this. Men like Edmund don't give up easily. He'll want to change your mind, convince you you're making a mistake. Violet suspected her mother was right, but it didn't matter. Her mind was made up. Her heart finally aligned with her actions. Whatever Edmund said, whatever arguments he made, nothing would change her decision. She belonged to Onas, had always belonged to him, and finally, she was brave enough to stop running from that truth. True to Sarah's prediction, Edmund's response arrived within a week. The telegram was brief. Received your letter. Arriving as planned to discuss in person. Do not make hasty decisions. E.W. Pompous ass, Violet muttered, crumpling the telegram. He loves you, her mother said gently. Can you blame him for wanting to fight for you? He doesn't love me. He loves the idea of me, the respectable wife who will host his dinner parties and bear his children and never challenge him. She moved to the window where she could see Onas working in the corral. He doesn't know me at all. The days before Edmund's arrival passed in a strange limbo. Violet and Onas rode out to inspect the north property her father had deeded to him. The cabin was small, just 2 rooms, but solidly built, with a stone fireplace and real glass windows. The land rolled gently toward the mountains, rocky but beautiful, with the promised creek cutting through the property and enough grassland to support a small horse herd. We'll need to repair the roof, Onas noted, studying the cabin critically. Replace some floorboards. Build a proper barn. We'll manage. Violet stood in the doorway, imagining their future. Mornings waking up together, evenings watching the sunset from the porch, the slow building of a life that belonged only to them. What are you thinking? He came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. That it's perfect. She leaned back against him. That I can't wait to start our life here. He kissed the side of her neck, sending shivers down her spine. Your Edmund arrives tomorrow. He's not my Edmund. She turned in his arms. He never was, not really. Are you nervous? About seeing him? A little. She traced the line of Onas's jaw. About my decision? Not at all. The kiss that followed was slow and deep, a reaffirmation of everything they'd promised each other. Violet lost herself in it, in him, in the freedom of finally being able to show her love without hiding or shame. They were interrupted by the sound of an approaching horse. Onas pulled back reluctantly, scanning the horizon. Your father's foreman, probably looking for us. Sure enough, Miguel appeared over the rise, waving when he spotted them. Miss Violet, your mother sent me to fetch you, says you need to prepare for tomorrow's guest. The reminder of Edmund's imminent arrival cast a shadow over the day's joy, but Violet forced herself to smile. Tell her I'll be right there. That evening, as she helped her mother prepare the guest room, Sarah offered quiet advice. Be kind but firm tomorrow. Edmund deserves respect even as you're breaking his heart. I know. Violet smoothed the fresh linens on the bed. I never wanted to hurt him. No one ever does. Her mother paused. But sometimes, hurting someone in the short term is kinder than leading them on. He'll recover. Find someone who loves him properly. You both deserve that. Edmund arrived the next afternoon in a hired carriage, looking every inch the prosperous Boston gentleman in his tailored suit and polished shoes. He was handsome in a refined way, fair hair carefully styled, clean-shaven jaw, hands that had never done hard labor. Everything about him screamed respectability and civilization. Everything about him was wrong for her. Violet! He climbed down from the carriage with athletic grace, his smile warm but his eyes troubled. My dear, you look well. The mountain air suits you. Edmund. She accepted his polite kiss on her cheek, careful to keep distance between them. How was your journey? Tedious but bearable. He glanced around the ranch property, and she saw him note the rough buildings, the muddy corrals, the distant mountains. His expression suggested he found it all rather primitive. Might we speak privately, before I greet your parents? Of course. She led him toward the small garden her mother maintained, aware of curious eyes watching from various corners of the property. Onas was nowhere visible, but she knew he was nearby, knew he'd make himself scarce during this conversation, but remained close enough to intervene if needed. Edmund waited until they were out of immediate earshot before speaking. I received your letter. I assumed as much given your telegram. Violet, He took her hands and she had to force herself not to pull away. I understand that returning home has stirred up old feelings. Nostalgia can be powerful. But surely you see that those feelings are based on memory, not reality. That's not what this is, isn't it? His grip tightened. You left here 3 years ago, built a new life, accepted my proposal. We have plans, a future together in Boston, a home, eventual children. And you'd throw all that away for what? Childhood infatuation? It's not infatuation. She pulled her hands free. Edmund, I care about you. You're a good man, and you deserve someone who loves you completely. But I can't be that person. Because of him. It wasn't a question. The Apache your father employs. I made inquiries after receiving your letter. It wasn't difficult to discover the rumors about you and one of the ranch hands. Heat flooded her cheeks, part embarrassment and part anger. His name is Onas, and yes, I love him. I've always loved him. Then why did you accept my proposal? The hurt in his voice was genuine. Why did you let me believe we had a future? Because I was trying to do the right thing. The words burst out of her. Because everyone told me loving him was impossible, that I needed to move on, that a proper life meant marrying someone like you. And I tried, Edmund, I really tried to want what I was supposed to want. But you couldn't. His voice was flat. No, I'm sorry, but no. She met his eyes directly. You deserve someone who looks at you the way I look at Onas. Someone whose heart races when you enter a room. Someone who can't imagine a future without you in it. I can imagine that future, Edmund, and while I'm sure it would be comfortable and respectable, it wouldn't be what either of us deserves. He was quiet for a long moment, studying her face. You're really in love with him? Yes. And nothing I say will change your mind? No. He exhaled slowly, shoulders slumping. I should be angry. I am angry. I'm humiliated, actually. I'll have to explain to my family, to our friends, that I was jilted for a... He caught himself. For someone entirely unsuitable. I know this isn't easy. Easy? He laughed bitterly. Violet, do you understand what you're giving up? The life we could have had? The position in society, the comfort, the security? I understand perfectly. And I'm choosing differently. You're choosing hardship. He gestured toward the ranch buildings. You're choosing a life of struggle and judgment, and doors closed in your face, and for what? Passion? That fades, Violet. In a few years you'll wake up and realize you've traded everything for nothing. Or I'll wake up next to the man I love and feel grateful every day that I was brave enough to choose him. She pulled his ring from her pocket. She'd been carrying it, waiting for this moment. I'm sorry, Edmund, truly, but this is final. He stared at the ring in her palm, his jaw working. Finally, he took it, sliding it into his vest pocket. I hope you don't regret this. I won't. We'll see. He straightened his coat, composure returning. I'll pay my respects to your parents and leave in the morning. I assume you have accommodations for me overnight. Of course. My mother has prepared the guest room. The dinner that evening was painfully awkward. Edmund maintained polite conversation with her parents. discussing Boston weather and railroad stocks and other safe topics. But the tension was palpable, and Violet caught her mother shooting worried glances between them throughout the meal. After dinner, Edmund excused himself to his room. Violet sat with her parents in the front room, the silence heavy. "Well," Thomas finally said, "that's done then." "Is Onas all right?" Violet asked. She hadn't seen him since Edmund's arrival. "He's keeping his distance, which is wise." Her father sipped his whiskey. "Edmund seems to be taking it well, all things considered." "Too well," Sarah murmured. "Men like that don't give up easily." Her words proved prophetic. Near midnight, Violet was awakened by raised voices from downstairs. She pulled on her robe and crept to the landing, where she could see into the front room without being immediately visible. Edmund stood near the fireplace, still fully dressed, speaking with quiet intensity to someone she couldn't see. Significant sum, enough to start over somewhere far from here. California, perhaps, or even Mexico. "You're trying to bribe me." Onas's voice was cold. "To leave. I'm offering you an opportunity." Edmund pulled a bank draft from his pocket. $5,000. More money than you'd make in 10 years of ranch work. Take it, disappear, and let Violet move on with her proper life. Her proper life? Onas stepped into view, and Violet caught her breath at the controlled fury in his expression. "You mean the life you've decided she should have, regardless of what she wants?" "She doesn't know what she wants. She's confused, caught up in nostalgia and misplaced loyalty." Edmund moved closer. "But in a few years, when the novelty wears off and she's struggling to make ends meet, ostracized by decent society, she'll regret choosing you. She'll resent you for the opportunities she gave up. That's her choice to make." "Is it?" Edmund's voice sharpened. "Or are you being selfish, taking what you want without considering what's best for her? What's best for her is being with someone who actually knows her." Onas's hands clenched at his sides. "Who loves her for who she is, not who he wants her to be. Who respects her enough to let her make her own decisions." Pretty words, but words don't provide security. Words don't give her the life she deserves. "And you do." Onas moved closer, matching Edmund's aggressive stance. "A man who investigated her personal life behind her back? Who's trying to buy off her chosen partner? That's the respectable life you're offering?" "I'm trying to protect her from a mistake." "No." Violet spoke from the landing, and both men startled, looking up at her. "You're trying to control a situation you've already lost." She descended the stairs, tying her robe more firmly. "Edmund, I appreciate your concern, but I'm not a child who needs protecting from her own choices. I'm a grown woman who understands exactly what she's choosing." "Violet, no." She moved to stand beside Onas, taking his hand. "You need to accept that this is over. I don't love you. I love him. And no amount of money or persuasion or dire warnings will change that." Edmund stared at their joined hands, something ugly flickering across his face. "You'll regret this. When you're living in poverty, ostracized by everyone decent, struggling to survive, you'll remember this moment and regret it." "Perhaps," she squeezed Onas's hand. "Or perhaps I'll look back and be grateful I was brave enough to choose love over comfort." "Love." Edmund spat the word like a curse. "You don't know anything about love. You're a spoiled child playing at rebellion, and when reality sets in, you'll come crawling back to civilization. Get out." Thomas's voice cut through the tension. He stood in the doorway to his bedroom, Sarah beside him. "You've said your piece. Now leave my house." "Mr. Langford." "Now." Thomas's hand moved to the rifle mounted above the doorway, not touching it, but the threat was clear. "You'll be gone by morning, or I'll have you removed." Edmund stared at them all for a long moment, his face flushed with humiliation and rage. Finally, he nodded stiffly. "Very well, I'll leave at first light." He looked at Violet one last time. "When this falls apart, and it will, don't expect me to be waiting. I won't." Her voice was steady. "Goodbye, Edmund." He left without another word, his footsteps heavy on the stairs. They all stood in tense silence until they heard his door slam. "Well," Sarah said with forced lightness, "that could have gone worse." Despite everything, Violet laughed. The tension broke, and even Thomas cracked a smile. "You should both go back to bed," her father said. "It's late, and Edmund will be gone by morning." But Violet found she couldn't return to her room. She was too wired, too aware of Onas standing beside her, his hand still wrapped around hers. "Walk with me?" she asked quietly. They slipped out the back door into the cold night. The moon was nearly full, painting everything silver. Without discussion, they headed for the barn, neutral territory private enough for conversation. Inside, surrounded by the comforting scents of hay and horses, Onas finally spoke. "He offered me money to leave." "I heard." She leaned against a support beam. $5,000. More money than I've ever seen. He turned to face her. Enough to start over somewhere new, build a life. Her heart clenched. "Are you considering it?" "What? No!" He closed the distance between them in 2 strides. "No, Violet. I wanted you to know what I turned down. What I'd turned down 100 times over because nothing, no amount of money, no promise of an easier life, is worth losing you." Relief flooded through her so powerfully her knees weakened. "I was afraid." "Don't be afraid." He cupped her face in his hands. "I meant what I said. I'm not going anywhere. We're in this together." She kissed him then, pouring 3 years of longing and fear and desperate hope into it. His arms came around her, lifting her slightly off the ground, and she wrapped her legs around his waist, gasping as he pressed her back against the barn wall. "Violet." Her name was a prayer on his lips as he kissed her jaw, her neck, the hollow of her throat exposed by her loosened robe. "We should stop." "Why?" She tangled her fingers in his long hair, pulling him closer. "We're getting married. No one can judge us. Your parents are 30 yards away. Then we'll be quiet." She found his mouth again, and coherent thought became impossible. They came together with desperate urgency, years of denied passion finally unleashed. Clothing was pushed aside rather than removed, modesty preserved even as they claimed each other completely. It was raw and intense and over far too quickly, leaving them both gasping and trembling in each other's arms. That was... Violet couldn't find words. Long overdue. Onas rested his forehead against hers, both of them still trying to catch their breath. And absolutely worth waiting for. She laughed, giddy with joy and release, and the sheer rightness of finally being his in every way. "We should probably make ourselves presentable before going back to the house." "Probably." But neither of them moved for several long minutes, content to simply hold each other in the silver moonlight filtering through the barn's gaps. Finally, reluctantly, they separated and straightened their clothing. Violet's hair was hopelessly mussed, her lips swollen, but she couldn't bring herself to care. She felt alive in a way she'd never experienced, fully herself, fully free, fully loved. They walked back to the house hand in hand, and if anyone noticed Violet's rumpled state when she slipped back to her room, they were kind enough not to mention it. Edmund left at dawn without saying goodbye, his carriage disappearing down the road in a cloud of dust. Violet watched from her window with no regret, only relief that the final obstacle between her and her future had been removed. The next weeks passed in a blur of preparation. She and Onas worked on the cabin together, repairing the roof, replacing damaged floorboards, making the small space into something that could be called home. Her mother helped her sew curtains and linens. Her father arranged for the breeding mares to be moved to their property, along with enough supplies to get them started. Finding someone to marry them proved challenging. The minister in the nearest town refused outright. 2 others gave polite excuses. Finally, a traveling preacher agreed, an older man who'd seen enough of life to care more about love than propriety. The wedding was small and simple. Just Violet's parents, a few trusted ranch hands, and the preacher standing in the clearing near their cabin. Violet wore a simple dress she'd sewn herself, nothing like the elaborate gown she'd have worn marrying Edmund, but infinitely more meaningful. Onas wore new clothes purchased for the occasion, proper trousers and a clean shirt, his long hair braided with leather cord. He looked nervous and hopeful, and so handsome Violet's breath caught. "Dearly beloved," the preacher began, and Violet stopped hearing the words. All she could see was Onas, the way he looked at her like she was the only thing in the world that mattered, the way his hands trembled slightly as he took hers. "I, Violet Marie Langford, take you, Onas, to be my husband." Her voice was steady, clear. "I promise to love you in hardship and in joy, in struggle and in peace, from this day until my last day. I, Onas, take you, Violet, to be my wife." His voice was rough with emotion. "I promise to protect you, provide for you, and cherish you every day we're given together." The ring he slid onto her finger was simple silver, all he could afford, but it meant infinitely more than Edmund's diamond ever had. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," the preacher said with a smile. "You may kiss your bride." The kiss was gentle, reverent, a promise of forever sealed between them. When they broke apart, Violet's cheeks were wet with tears. Happy tears, grateful tears, tears of relief that they'd finally reached this moment. The small group celebrated with a simple meal at her parents' house. As the sun set, painting the mountains golden red, Violet and Onas said their goodbyes and rode back to their cabin, their home now, officially and completely. Inside, Onas built up the fire while Violet lit the lamps. The space was small but cozy, filled with their combined belongings and the promise of a future they'd build together. "Mrs. Onas," he said, testing out the name. She laughed. "I suppose I should have asked your full name before we married." "Onas is the only name I use now." He pulled her close. "The rest belongs to a past I left behind." She understood. Everyone had secrets, pieces of themselves they kept hidden. They'd have time, a lifetime, to share those pieces. That night they came together again, slowly this time, learning each other properly, taking time to explore and savor. In the morning, Violet woke wrapped in her husband's arms, sunlight streaming through the windows they'd cleaned together, and knew with absolute certainty that she'd made the right choice. The months that followed weren't easy. There were hard days, neighbors who wouldn't acknowledge them, businesses that refused to serve them, whispered comments that followed them through town. But there were also good days, the first foal born on their property, their first successful horse sale, evenings spent on their porch watching the sunset paint the mountains. And through it all, they had each other. 3 years later. Violet stood on the porch of their expanded cabin, one hand resting on her swollen belly, watching Onas work with a young mare in the training corral. 3 years of marriage had only deepened her love for him. She knew his morning routine, his quiet laugh, the way he touched her even in sleep, always reaching for her. Their horse ranch was small, but thriving. They'd built a reputation for quality stock and fair dealing, and customers came from as far as Santa Fe to purchase their horses. It wasn't the wealthy life she'd have had with Edmund, but it was real and theirs. The baby kicked and Violet smiled, pressing her hand against the movement. They'd be parents soon, in a few weeks, according to the midwife. The nursery was ready, tiny clothes sewn and waiting, names debated endlessly. Onas looked up and caught her watching. His face split into a grin, and he waved. She waved back, her heart full to bursting. "Mama!" a small voice called from inside. "I can't reach the cookies." Violet laughed and turned back into the house, where their 2-year-old daughter, Eleanor, stood on her toes trying to reach the high shelf where treats were kept. She had Violet's dark hair and Onas's striking features, a beautiful blend of both of them. "Cookies are for after dinner, little one." Violet lifted Elena into her arms, as well as she could with her belly in the way. "Help me set the table instead." Elena nodded enthusiastically, already chattering about her day, the butterfly she'd seen, the story Papa had told her, the horse that had nuzzled her hand. She was bright and curious and utterly fearless, and Violet loved her with a fierceness that sometimes frightened her. Yes, there were still hard days, still people who looked at their family with judgment, still moments when Violet wondered if they'd made the right choices. But then Onas would come in from working, swinging Elena into the air while she shrieked with delight, before kissing Violet gently and resting his hand on their unborn child. And Violet would know, with absolute certainty, that every hardship, every sacrifice, every difficult moment had been worth it. Because this messy, imperfect, beautiful life was exactly what she'd been meant for. The door opened, and her parents entered bearing fresh bread and news from town. They'd become regular visitors, delighting in their granddaughter and excitedly awaiting the second grandchild. "Any day now," Sarah said, eyeing Violet's belly. "Are you ready?" "As ready as I can be." Violet accepted her mother's hug. "We've prepared the birthing room and the midwife has promised to come as soon as I send word." "You'll do wonderfully," her mother assured her, "just as you've done with everything else." That evening, after her parents had left, and Elena was asleep in her small bed, Violet and Onas sat together on their porch. The stars wheeled overhead, bright and infinite, and the mountains stood silent watch over their small corner of the world. "Do you ever regret it?" Onas asked quietly. "Choosing this life?" "Never." She didn't even have to think about it. "Do you?" "Not once." He kissed her temple. "Though I sometimes wonder what I did to deserve you. You claimed me." She smiled at the memory. "You may end our deal, but not my claim. You meant it, didn't you? Even when I ran, even when I tried to convince myself I'd moved on, you never let me go. How could I?" His hand covered hers. "You were mine, from the moment I first saw you. I just had to wait for you to realize it. Well, I've realized it now." She leaned into him, comfortable and content. "And I'm never running again." "Good." His hand moved to her belly, feeling the baby move beneath his palm. "Because I'm never letting go." They sat in comfortable silence as the stars slowly wheeled overhead, marking the passage of time, bearing witness to a love that had overcome every obstacle placed in its path. A love that had, against all odds, endured, and would continue enduring through whatever challenges the future brought for all the days they were given together. Because some bonds, forged in starlight and sealed with promises, were truly meant to last forever. The end. Dear listener, you know that feeling of finally taking off tight shoes after a long day? That deep sigh when you realize you can at last simply be? Violet and Onas's story isn't about grand romantic gestures or destinies written in the stars. It's about something far simpler and deeper, the sacred relief of stopping the pretense. Think about it. Violet spent 3 full years living as if she were holding her breath. She'd wake up, dress appropriately, smile at the right moments, say the expected words. And on the outside it looked perfect, but inside, she was slowly suffocating, dying in the quietest way possible, living someone else's life. Perhaps you know that feeling. It doesn't have to be a wrong fiancé or forbidden love. Sometimes it's a job that drains your soul, a relationship that works on paper but not in your heart, a version of yourself you built to please people who deep down don't even know who you really are. And here's what nobody tells you, but what I want you to know tonight. You don't need to wait for a crisis to change direction. You don't need a sign from the universe or anyone's permission. You don't need to wait until you're completely broken to admit something isn't right. Violet took 3 years, but it could have been 3 months, 3 weeks, or simply today. Here's a strange and liberating truth. People are going to talk about you anyway. If you stay, they'll say you're a coward. If you go, they'll say you're impulsive. If you choose safety, they'll say you lack courage. If you choose risk, they'll say you're irresponsible. So, since they're going to talk either way, why not do what truly matters to you? Edmund wasn't a villain. He was just the wrong man. And you know what that means? It means that choosing yourself doesn't require the other person to be bad. You can leave situations with kind people, respectable jobs, perfectly acceptable lives, simply because they aren't yours. And that's reason enough. You don't need all the answers tomorrow. You don't need a perfect plan. You don't need to know exactly how it will work out. Violet didn't know. Onas didn't know. They just knew that staying apart, staying in lives that weren't true, hurt more than any uncertainty could hurt. And maybe that's it. Maybe courage isn't the absence of fear. Maybe it's simply deciding that the pain of staying false is greater than the fear of being real. So as you prepare for sleep, I want you to imagine something. Imagine waking up tomorrow without carrying the weight of being who you're not, without the exhaustion of pretending interest in things that don't touch you, without the tightness in your chest from living for others' expectations. Imagine how light it would feel, how free. That feeling? It's not fantasy. It's a choice. A choice you can start making right now, little by little, in small acts of honesty with yourself. And you're protected on this journey, not by magic or fate, but by something more reliable, the strength you've already proven by making it this far. You've survived 100% of your worst days. That's no small thing. Sleep deeply tonight, my friend. Tomorrow the world will wake up with its old rules and tired expectations. But you? You can wake up knowing that each day is a new opportunity to choose 1 more millimeter of truth, 1 more degree of authenticity, one more step closer to who you really are. And this quiet, personal, and deeply courageous journey back to yourself is the most important adventure you'll ever live. Thank you for letting us be part of your night. May you rest in the certainty that being yourself was never a mistake. It just took time to get here. And now, you're home. With deep respect for your journey, the Wild West Whispers team, thank you for staying with us until the end of this journey. We hope this story brought you comfort, strength, and a renewed sense of wonder for the paths life can take. If it touched your heart, we kindly invite you to like the video, leave a comment, and share it with someone who needs a moment of peace or inspiration. If you enjoy stories like this, filled with emotional depth, redemption, and powerful turning points, please consider subscribing to our channel and supporting our work from the heart. It means more than you know. Your presence here keeps us going, and your support allows us to keep telling stories that truly matter. And as the video ends, you'll see a suggestion for another tale from our channel. Click it and let yourself be surprised by another deeply moving story. Thank you for being here. Wild West Whispers team.